Good evening, everyone. My name is Elaine Chen. I'm a senior lecturer and entrepreneur in residence at the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, and I'm here to talk to you about passion. I was born in Hong Kong when it was still the British Crown colony of Hong Kong. Here I was in my 5th grade picture, not as cute as Louise, but as you can see, I was a perfectly normal kid in a sea of perfectly normal kids. I didn't stick out in any way. Unlike Louise, I didn't know I was going to grow up to be an inventor. In fact, I had no idea what I was going to grow up to be, but I did make good grades. So the good grades brought me here. I went to MIT to study mechanical engineering, and I got on campus. I'm looking around me. I see geeks. Geeks everywhere, all these geeks, and they were building all these things in the dorm rooms. They were building robots in the dorm room. They were coding, and I was like, this is heaven. I found my people. This is good. I know what my passion is. I am going to invent cool stuff. That's my passion. I'm going to invent cool stuff. This cool stuff is going to magically make it into the world. I'm going to get famous. And that's, I got my whole life planned out. After graduation, I went and got a job as a mechanical engineer at a company called Exos, which stands for exoskeletons, because we made exoskeletons. So this guy is actually a NASA guy. We did an SBIR project for NASA, and this exoskeleton controls a robot that is supposed to hang on the outside of a space station. And what does the robot do? It's supposed to do extravehicular retrieval of space debris, which is geek speak for trash collection. So the robot sweeps up trash. Now, what's really special about this exoskeleton is that it's also a haptic device. What's haptics? It's a sense of touch. What this device lets this guy feel is, as he's collecting this trash, he can feel every piece of trash. And that's really special. If you think about how we interact with the world, we use sight, we use our sense of hearing, we use our sense of touch. When you interact with the computer, the sense of touch is lost. What's with that? We have the technology. I know how to fix this. So I was going to invent cool haptic devices and fix this. So that's what we did. We built lots of haptic devices, giving a sense of touch to your fingertips, your wrist. Eventually, we put the technology into a joystick, which got the attention of Microsoft. Microsoft bought this company in 1996, and in 1997, they brought our technology into the market in the form of the Sidewinder Force Feedback Pro joystick. Even better, 3 patents, my first patents, fame and glory. Not so fast. So it took Microsoft 2 years to sell $15 million worth of this joystick. Call it 1 million joysticks. Is that a lot for Microsoft? No, it was like 2 peanuts, a rounding error. So what happened? It turned out we were so excited about the technology that we forgot to ask the gamers why do they go in and play games. And who would have thought that they went to play games for the gaming experience instead of the joystick? So we solved the problem that didn't need to be solved. That's why it never got really big. So I got really sad. So not to be put down by one experience, I went back into the game and joined a different company called Sensible Technologies. That's also a haptic company. And we also had a mission of giving a sense of touch to people interacting with computers. This is what I got to do in my first 6 months of work. I went on to run engineering for them. My first 2 months, I got to take apart a haptic device that gave resistance in X, Y, and Z. I took it all apart, and I put 3 more motors in it, put it back together, and lo and behold, a 6 degree of freedom force feedback device. You can feel resistance now not only in X, Y, and Z, but also in twists. And who needs that? Automotive companies, also aerospace, when they try to figure out if things will fit in an assembly. So I built 2 more, and I sold one to Boeing, and I sold one to General Electric. I think I justified my salary by that point. And so it was great, and I wasn't going to make the same mistake twice, right? So I made sure I went out of the office and did a lot of primary market research. We started making a software application to help people who design products sculpt with a sense of touch. So we went out to talk to automotive companies. I was in Japan talking to Honda. I went to Detroit, talked to Ford, GM, Chrysler back then. And we made such beautiful products, and the end users loved it. We solved their problems. We understood their needs. We went into many different verticals, including dental restorations. Always, the end users loved us, and we got more patents. So, fame and glory! Well, we did one thing really well, which was understand the end users. We did one thing slightly less well, which was figure out how big is this thing really, right? So it ended up, we ended up solving some really, really big problems for end users in very, very niche applications. At the end of the day, it didn't get very big. And we didn't really transform how people interacted with computers. So I got very sad again. So not to be put down, I went back into the game again and again and again. And each time we tried to apply the lessons learned, we checked in with the end users, we checked with the market. Some of the products didn't work, some of them worked really well. I mean, look at this guy. He's a manufacturing robot. He has 16 motors. He picks things up and puts things down. He makes kits. He puts things in boxes. And he even has some haptic effects, because I took some of my early inventions and I put that into this robot as a feature. How can you not love this, right? I built all this cool stuff. And even more patents. I ended up with 22, which is, I just learned that, Rick has 800. So merely 22, but that's pretty good, right? And okay, I never got famous, but some market success, I should be very satisfied, right? Still, I wasn't. And something was missing. And what was it? Along the way, I realized 3 fundamental truths between me and my technologies. First, technology alone is not enough. I needed to understand the customer in order to make a good product. Second, once I understood the customer, that's still not enough. If I didn't understand the market and find a big enough market to sustain a good business, it doesn't get the reach, the impact is limited, that's still not enough. But the last realization I had was, if I had all of that, and I wasn't passionate about the problem that I was trying to solve, that's still not enough. And it just didn't matter if I got the customer right and the market right. If I wasn't passionate about the problem I was solving, then it just all was for naught. And I realized it was all about passion. And now I'm mid-career, right? Like I'm all the way down being a robotics geek, and I had no passion. And now I got really depressed. So right around the time when I was in this funk, I was still serving as VP of engineering for this robot company. I started mentoring and coaching students at MIT, trying to share some of these lessons learned and see if I can help them save some time. And this is when I met this guy, Luciano. Luciano is an entrepreneur from Brazil, and he so reminded me of me. All he could talk about was his balloon drone. So what's this thing? There's a helium balloon stuck on top of the drone, and the helium balloon makes the drone lighter weight, so it could go farther on the same battery charge. And he couldn't stop talking about it. So it's summer. We're sitting at this table looking at this design, and I'm like, Luciano, stop talking about the drone. Why do you care? Why does anybody care about your drone? Tell me, what are you passionate about? What problem do you want to solve? He wouldn't go there with me. He just wanted to talk about the drone. And he's like, no, back to this balloon. And I'm like, no, no. And I was more stubborn than him. I wouldn't let him get up until he told me what he cared about. It turned out he cared about farming. In Brazil, they grow a lot of soybean plants. And what he thought he could do for Brazil and the Brazilian farmers is he could send this drone out, use computer vision to map the fields and figure out where there is early pest infestation, so that the farmer can then go and do a point application of pesticide instead of spraying the whole field, which is always a bad thing, right? So I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Now go out and validate it. Talk to as many farmers as you can and see if you're right or if you're wrong. Well, he didn't want to go there with me either. He's like, well, back to the drone. I'm like, no, 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 no. You're going to go and talk to customers. Figure out end user, figure out market. Long story short, many conversations later, he did do what we asked him to do. And what did he find? He found that early pest detection was a problem. He validated the problem. He also found that it was one of 9 problems. And because he was applying some of the lessons that I learned earlier in my career, was able to understand how farmers really thought about running their farms, and he was able to build a much more complete solution. And he's quite successful. He just closed a very major contract last month. Luciano was the first guy to come to me, and he said, "Teacher, you changed my approach." Nobody ever called me teacher ever before. I never thought of myself as an educator. But in that moment, something really strange happened. I had this very strange, unfamiliar feeling. I was happy. So I realized I was being really not very smart all this time. I was chasing fame and glory, personal vainglory, and that's just not me. I'm not wired to be motivated by that. I was motivated by enabling other people to succeed. And when I saw him succeed, that was better than when I actually got my products out. So since meeting Luciano, I've taught a lot of MIT students on campus. I've done programs abroad. Here we are standing in front of a factory in China. In some programs, we even talk to international students from like 33 countries. And the satisfaction I get from doing these programs is just more than all of my patents added together. And after all this time, after 25 years, I found my passion. And it took a long time. It really shouldn't have to take that long. So as I come to the close of this talk, I have a challenge for all of you in the audience. What is your passion? And are you doing something every day in the context of your passion? If yes, awesome. If not, maybe you might consider looking back into the last 3 or 6 months and looking for unexpected moments of happiness. Maybe those moments of happiness might help you figure out what your passion lies. Figuring out where your passion is, that is a problem worth solving. Thank you.